30th January 1925. There's a sand cave in Kentucky State. Floyd Collins takes a kerosene lantern in his hand and enters a 5-foot hole. The cave was very small, so he walks on his knees and goes ahead. And there were wet stones all around the surface. And he reaches a chute section which he had dug a few months earlier. There was darkness in the entire cave. And that kerosene lantern was his last hope. And now he reaches the turnaround room. And this was the same place where experienced cavers used to hesitate to come. And they used to turn around and go back. And that's why the name of this section was Turned Around, because going ahead meant crossing the cavern with a 9-inch hole. The squeeze. If told in context, the length of this hole is equal to the length of a 500-milliliter cola bottle. And coming here meant that it was going to look exactly like this. Floyd was slowly disappearing in this hole. His clothes were bursting with pointed crystals all around, and it was stopping him from going ahead. He was only pushing himself with his feet. And now he reaches a wider opening. There was a ledge here, and he had to cross that ledge and go down 10 feet. He ties the rope to a stone and goes down. And there was the end of the cave ahead, and he had to do something here. He was working for another opening, and this place was too small for anyone to fit in. He was going to dig this place and go to the other side. There was a big crystal chamber here, and it was going to look something like this. That place was made of a pristine white crystal. A new place, as if it doesn't exist in this world. Floyd was digging the stones here for months, and this was his daily routine. So, like every time Floyd was working and coming back, he was pulling himself, as if he had come inside. The wall was so tight that he could never use his hands, and he stops in the middle of the way, because his kerosene lantern was dimming. And as he moves ahead, the lantern slips from Floyd's hand, and the lantern falls and breaks. And now he was alone in the entire dark cave, because the situation was bad. But he was still relaxed. He was walking alone 60 feet below in the dark cave, and at that time, he accidentally hits a loose stone with his foot, and that 15-kilogram stone falls on his ankle. He tries to remove the stone from the other foot, but there was very little space. That stone fits in his hole, and suddenly, more small stones fall on his feet. Floyd was stuck in an awkward position, and whatever force he used to get out, but it was impossible. The more he tried to move, the more stones would fall on him, and the situation would get worse. The boulders were falling behind him, and the droplets of ice water were falling on his face. Now he had only one option: call out for help. He had no option but to scream. This is a sand cave, and Floyd was stuck in absolute darkness. That too 60 feet below the ground. And now Floyd Collins' survival race begins. So guys, you are watching Story Rush channel, so let's start today's story. Floyd Collins' survival story. Explorer Floyd Collins has been trapped in sand cave. Collins was negotiating a small cavern tunnel when he was pinned by fallen rocks and debris at 10 a.m. on Friday morning. So far, efforts to free him have been unsuccessful. Floyd Collins was born on the 20th of June, 1887 in Logan County, Kentucky, and Floyd's cave exploring career starts only 6 years after that. And he was very passionate about caving since childhood. He used to do caving for hours daily. And in fact, he used to sleep in the cave sometimes. And that's why he discovered a new cave in 1917 on his father's farmland. And now he was involved in the Kentucky Cave Wars. If I tell you about the Kentucky Cave Wars in a simple way, this is a huge network of interconnected caves, Mammoth Cave. And this is actually the world's largest cave system. And there is a city in the middle called Cave City. And there are thousands of caves in the entire private property area. And that's why there is no farming here. And here, cave tourism as a source of income becomes a prominent thing. So the problem is that there are more caves here, but fewer people. So obviously, the competition here increases. And after discovering his cave, Floyd also does his entire advertisement. But people still don't come to his cave, because there was no uniqueness in his cave. So Floyd later discovers another cave on someone else's private property. And there is an agreement between the landowner and him that a 50% share in the profit was going to be split among them. And now Floyd just had to make that cave attractive so that as many people as possible come here. And because the location of the cave was also very good, it was only 100 yards away from the highway. And there was a uniqueness in this cave. There was a chamber in this sand cave, which was made of gypsum crystal, and it looked much more beautiful than the other caves comparatively. But it was very difficult to go to this place, and Floyd was working for months to find a way out of it. Floyd was very passionate. He used to remove the stones in the cave for 12 hours a day so that he could find that place. And eventually, on the 30th of January 1925, the day he was about to get stuck, he finds that crystal chamber. He was very happy. He used to look at that chamber for hours because he was the first person in history to come to this place. He was excited to tell his family about this discovery, but God had written something else in his fate. Anyway, on his way back, he gets stuck at a depth of 60 feet, and it was not even possible to move him. He was screaming in the entire dark cave, and after getting tired, he stops for a while, and then he sleeps for a while, and then after waking up again, he screams again. But no one was there to hear his voice, and he keeps screaming in this darkness for 23 hours. The entire day and night of 30th January passes, but no one was there to hear him. He was very lucky. Two owners of the property, Ed Estes and Dee Boyle, come to the entrance of the cave, and there was a son of Dee Boyle who came with him, Joel. He sees Floyd's coat and cap hanging outside the cave, so he goes inside and calls out to Floyd. But he doesn't get any reply from Floyd. So he goes inside a little more and reaches the turnaround section, where there was a squeeze hole, and he screams from there. And then Floyd's screams come from inside the squeeze hole. Because the cave was on the highway, there was a crowd of people. And Homer was Floyd's younger brother. And before coming to Floyd's cave, Floyd had already asked Homer to come with him, but Homer refused. But now Homer was passionate to get his brother out of there somehow. Homer enters the cave desperately and crosses the squeeze area. He was getting scratches from the rough surface, but he ignores everyone and reaches Floyd, and soon Homer's feet touches Floyd's face. But things were not right here. The situation was getting worse. So the situation was that Floyd was here, and the rocks were pressing his ankle, and he was falling from the small rocks of heavy weight, and the small rocks were on top of him and were ready to fall. Because this opening was very small, there were only two options here. Option 1. Homer had to come down first, but he couldn't even touch Floyd with this. His body was stopping him. Option 2. If Homer takes his head down first, but he will get access with this, but he will have to move more than 100 kilograms of rocks in an upside-down position. And the problem was that there was very little space here. So first of all, Floyd was given a lot of sandwiches, and he was given a lot of coffee as well, so that he can stay warm. Floyd tells Homer that he has finally seen the crystal chamber, and he says that if he goes out of here, then he will never come back to this place. Now Homer starts his work. Homer is in an upside-down position for the next 8 hours, and removes the rocks from here with the help of this can. And the way he was removing the rocks, more rocks were coming down from the top and were getting stuck to Floyd, and all his hard work was getting wasted. Homer did as much as he could, but he also gets exhausted in this small place. He starts feeling dizzy, and finally he also comes out of the cave. And when he comes out, he was surprised to see that more than 100 people were watching this drama outside, and they were talking very stupid things to each other, that if he goes inside the cave, then how will he save Floyd very easily? And they were also talking various logical things. The news of Floyd's tragedy had spread like wildfire, and many reporters wanted to take an interview from Homer, and they wanted to know about Floyd. But Homer was worried. He was not interested in giving an interview to anyone. The people from outside go inside the cave, and when they reach the turnaround section, where there was a 9-inch squeeze hole, they get scared seeing that, and they come back. So there was a reporter, William Miller, here, who was trying to take an interview from Homer, but Homer didn't need any reporter. He needed a friend who could help him. He tells the reporter in anger, "Listen, if you want more information, then why didn't you go into the hole and look yourself?" And you know William Miller agrees to this. Yes, he goes inside the cave with a kerosene lantern, and as soon as he goes inside, there was a little water on the first floor of the cave, because the people outside were very stupid. They were lighting a bonfire outside to save themselves from the cold, without knowing what will happen inside the cave because of this. Miller also gets scared seeing the squeeze hole in the turnaround section, but if he didn't dare to go inside, then he too would have come in his category like everyone else. So that's why he goes inside the 9-inch hole, and even though there is a sharp stone inside, he reaches to Floyd, and he tries to take an interview from him. I can't believe this, that he was taking an interview from Floyd in this situation too. But Floyd was not in a condition to answer, and now he was lying in the cold water too. Basically, he was dying. Miller too couldn't do anything here, and he too comes out of the cave. Homer gets happy seeing Miller outside because there was only one Miller who was daring to go inside. Otherwise, the rest were all the same, and now there were two people who were helping Floyd in the rescue. Miller publishes Floyd's news in full detail in the newspaper, and his report becomes a nationwide story. The story's update was published in thousands of local and national newspapers, and people were taking its update through radio in hours. Its story was spreading in America, and everyone had only one question. When will Floyd Collin come out? Till now, the third character comes in the story, Robert Verdon. And this was the third version which crossed the squeeze and met Robert. and his plan was to pull Floyd's body with a rope. Floyd was not conscious till now. His eyes were opening, and then they were closing. Robert somehow makes him wear a belt jacket and gives him coffee to drink and also to eat, and also gives him a tablet which will reduce his pain, and he was going to feel relaxation. And all three, Homer, Miller, and Robert, hold the rope. And now there was going to be a tug of war. Cave versus 3 men, and the winner was going to meet Floyd Collin. And there were 3 more men behind the rope who were helping him to pull it. So in total, 6 men were pulling the rope. So Floyd was stuck like this, and the rope was pulling him like this. His body was getting compressed by the ceiling, and he could have died. Floyd was screaming in pain. He was begging to stop. Stop! Stop! It's going to pull me into 2 parts. There was no progress. Floyd was only getting pain. All 3 of them had lost in the tug of war, and the cave had won. After losing the tug, Miller goes back to his head, and he goes there and reports the details, and his articles become famous in a very short time. And Floyd Collin had become a national news. After this, Miller goes back to the sand, and he sees that someone has put a light bulb inside the cave, and Miller takes one of the bulbs and ties it to Floyd's collar so that he gets heat. And Miller tells Floyd that thousands of people outside have found out about you, and everyone is praying for you. If you want to say something, say it. Floyd was stuck here for 100 hours, and he says through the medium of the newspaper, "I believe I would go to heaven. I can feel that I am going to be taken out alive with my both feet. I kept thinking what would happen if the rock above me would fall. I kept thinking to turn my mind to something else, but it wasn't much use. I couldn't do much to help those who came to help me. But I knew that a lot of people were willing to do all in their power, and it gave me courage." Tuesday morning, I thought to be myself 4 days down here, and no nearer freedom than I was on first day. How it will end? Will I get out? I couldn't think of it. I have faced death before. It wouldn't frighten me. But it is so long. Floyd's story had spread all over the country, and everyone was talking about him. People from the country were going to the church and praying for him. And even the US President, Calvin Coolidge, was taking an interest in it. And it had become the 3rd largest non-political story. The number of people outside the Cape had increased from 1,000 to 10,000. All the hotels around the Cape used to get booked, and there was less food in the restaurant. There was so much crowd that the people there had opened the light version of the yo-yo. The people living in the nearby houses were giving the visitors $10 to $12 to sleep on the floor of their house. They were even giving people a bed in the bathroom to sleep. Yes, I am not kidding, it really happened. More than 4,500 vehicles had been parked outside the Cape, in the radius of 1 mile. This is Carl Michael, the superintendent of Kentucky Rock Asphalt Company. He had come to rescue Floyd from the government. He had brought along a rescue team and some military people. Carl Michael was not happy with Homer's rescue studies. First of all, he did a survey of the entire Cape, and it was found that there were thousands of people outside the Cape. And because of the movement of all the people, the Cape could have collapsed. Until now, small loose stones were about to fall inside the Cape. And there was a person in Carl Michael's team, Casey Jones. He crossed the squeeze area inside the Cape and reached Floyd, where Floyd was screaming for help. Until then, small stones were about to fall near the turnaround section, and suddenly, the ceiling started falling faster. And Casey wanted to go back now. But Floyd said that he was very thirsty, and Casey came closer to Floyd and started serving coffee to Floyd. But now Floyd turned his head and refused to drink coffee. And by this point, Casey realized what was going on here. Floyd was actually not asking for a drink. Floyd knew that he was trapped here for the past 5 days, and it was very difficult for him to get out of here. And now, he had become completely selfish. He knew that he was going to be trapped in this cave forever, and he didn't want to be trapped here alone. As soon as Casey understood this, he started running back, and he somehow reached the final squeeze. Stones were falling all around it, and he somehow managed to get out. And then all the people outside saw the cave collapsing together, and the route that could have been taken to Floyd was completely closed. Forever. This meant that there were only 2 options now. Option 1, give up. Option 2, dig from the top and make a new hole directly near Floyd. Floyd wouldn't have imagined that the operation was going on at what level and at what scale at 55 feet above him. Carmichael had high-tech machinery. Many professional groups were working on it from the city, and now it had become a professional, organized rescue mission. Everyone had to work here as fast as they could. Carmichael was an experienced person, and he had to dig 55 feet underground. So he did some calculations for this. So there were a total of 75 people in the rescue, and he could dig 2 feet every hour. So he had to dig a total of 55 feet. So it was going to take him roughly 30 hours. But the question was, can Floyd stay alive for so long? So yes, absolutely, he can stay alive like this. He starts digging. And Carmichael knew that this was a race against time. And these two people were working in their full capacity. And Carmichael had put many more people in line behind him. And if these two people had slowed down a little bit, then they would have been replaced by two new people. Gradually, the overall progress slows down. Interestingly, there were so many people outside the cave that if Floyd had seen it himself, he wouldn't have believed it. And practically speaking, everything was going on here. There were Ferris wheels, food stalls. Families and church people were making a group here and having a picnic. Some people who were making alcohol were selling alcohol here. And in fact, some people were smuggling drugs here. And there was a bloody juggler here who was swinging a ball. If I tell you all these things simply, there was a fair here. And now there is a turn in the story here. So the thing was that people actually didn't know that Floyd was trapped in this way. And even the newspapers were not helping him much. So the obvious question was that why hasn't Floyd come out yet? And for this, rumors start spreading. I heard they didn't even want to have him rescued at all. The other one says, I heard they all are doing for publicity. I think Floyd is not trapped at all. And the rumors spread even more badly. I heard that Floyd comes out at night, and he goes back to the cave during the day. And the other people say, I heard Floyd went into the cave, and someone murdered him. This is all fraud. Fraud is going on here. And it was not easy to stop such rumors for Homer. And some people even start doing more crazy things by making a group. The groups of 3 people go to a telegraph office, and one of them pretends to be Floyd, and he sends a telegraph to Floyd's mother. His mother, who had already passed away many years ago. Barker was busy digging in the ground, and he was trying to speed up his work by making all kinds of arrangements. But things had gone even worse. The speed of people's work had become very low. They were able to dig only 4 inches in an hour. But the question was, will Floyd be alive till now? Do you remember that light bulb that was placed on Floyd's collar to keep him warm? And that bulb was being powered by a simple copper wire, and an engineer connected the radio amplifier to that copper wire. Look, when Floyd was breathing, his chest was expanding and contracting, due to which there was a fluctuation in the copper wire, and its reading was directly visible in the radio amplifier. And that device was consistently detecting Floyd's breathing pattern. And this was the proof that Floyd was alive. So all the workers were working non-stop. The original estimate was only 30 hours, but it had taken 144 hours till now. And they had only dug 44 feet. And it starts raining. And in fact, it doesn't just rain. It was pouring down in the cold, and there was a chance that the hole was going to collapse. It had been 15 days since Floyd was trapped. And now with this, the excitement among the people had reduced, and the newspapers had also lost interest in this. Visitors were leaving the cave city, but there was still no news about Floyd. Many people had hopes. And then, that light bulb also stops burning. And now the reading could not even tell if Floyd was alive. 16th February, 1:30 p.m., Monday. Finally, a 55-feet hole had been made, and that cave opens. And it was unlikely that any person could have lived in this cave for 17 days. 12 days without food, 12 days without water. And the light bulb that was giving him warmth had stopped 4 days earlier. Everyone goes into silence after seeing this. Homer turns on the torch and looks at Floyd. Floyd's mouth was open. He had a golden tooth shining, but he was dead. Everyone comes out and gives the news to the rest of the people that Floyd Collins is no more. According to the reporter, he died 3 days earlier, the day the light bulb stopped burning, and he could have been alive till a day later. If these people had reached 3 days earlier, Floyd could have been saved. So that sand cave was about to collapse again. So that's why Floyd's body is not taken out, and it is kept there and sealed. The next day, Floyd's family holds a funeral for Floyd at their house, but no visitors were here yet. But you know, the story was yet to become more interesting. The owner of the sand cave, B. Doyle, was no less of a scoundrel. He puts up a signboard outside the sand cave, in which it says, "Come on, visitors, take a look, only 50 cents per visitor." He had made Floyd's cave a tourist attraction, and the authorities, who took the responsibility of the rescue, break the deal with the burglar, and they don't give them any money to dig the ground, and they have to go back just like that. William Miller gets a Pulitzer Prize in 1926 for his good reporting, and Homer Collins needed a lot of money to get Floyd's body out of the cave. He was telling the crowd the detailed story of the rescue and making donations on stage. His mission was to get Floyd out. So, after a few months, Homer gets the money. 17th April, 1927. Homer and his team start digging the ground, and they do it in a week. First, They removed the stone from his ankle, and then they take his body out, where Floyd gets fresh air. A few days later, Floyd is buried in a coffin instead of his mother. But the story doesn't end here. The story gets more interesting from here. 2 years later, Colin's family was facing a major financial issue. And at the same time, a dentist comes there, Dr. Harry B. Thomas, and he offers him to sell his land. "Sell this property to me and I will give you $10,000. But Homer didn't want to sell it. But Floyd's father, Lee Collins, was a little addicted to alcohol, and he gets greedy when he sees the money, and he sells his land without thinking twice. But Thomas came with another agreement, and it said, everything to this property belongs to Thomas. It means everything here was going to be Thomas's. And after buying the land, Thomas takes Floyd's body out and puts it in a glass coffin for showcase. And Thomas also had a cave, so he puts Floyd's body in that cave for showpiece. Till now, Floyd Collins was more popular than the cave. That is, wherever his body was, the visitors came to see him frequently. In simple words, Floyd's body had become a tourist attraction, and Thomas changed his failed cave into a successful business. And obviously Collins' family feels bad to see Floyd's body being misused, and they file a case in the court for this. But there was an agreement with Thomas, so they lose this case. And in the same way, this business of Thomas goes on for 2 years. But one night on the 19th of March, 1929, 2 people come to Thomas's cave and steal Floyd's body and take it away. And Floyd's body is later found in the bushes of a jungle. But Floyd's leg, due to which he was stuck in the cave, was cut off. Someone had stolen his leg, and no one knows who those 2 thieves were. At that time, the caving industry was very competitive. So, it is possible that someone stole Floyd's body from there and kept his leg in his cave for showpiece, but there is no proof for this. And it is possible that Floyd was stolen by Colin's family, but there is no proof for this either, so we can't say anything. Poor Floyd, while making the cave attractive, had become a tourist attraction for the visitors. The cave in which his body was going was unsuccessful. Because of this, Floyd's cave is now kept in a metal box, and it is tied with a chain and locked. And now Floyd was trapped much more than before. Later, after many decades, in 1989, Floyd's cave is bought through Mammoth Cave National Park, and Floyd's cave is closed forever, and a steel gate is installed at its entrance. But Colin's family was still objecting to all this, and finally, Floyd was taken out of that cave and buried in Mammoth Cave Baptist Church Cemetery. After 64 years, he finally got peace. And do you know what is the most unique thing in Floyd's story? Floyd made that cave with his own hands for many months. And finally, he was buried there. Or we can say that he dug his own grave. You have heard one more thing, right? History never repeats what it rhymes. People are still the same as they were earlier. John Edward Jones, for fun, went 400 feet inside the cave, and he spent 27 hours in an upside-down position. And finally, he took his last breath. And the similarity in this is that John's body is buried forever in that dirty cave, and that cave was sealed forever. So, this is where Floyd Collins' documentary ends. And Floyd Collins is the greatest cave explorer till now. So, it was compulsory for me to cover his story in detail. And that's why this video has become a little long and a little late as well. And tell us in the comments if this video was worth it or not. And if you liked the video, please do subscribe.